Good day everyone, I am the reporter for today together with Ms. Prado, and for today's lesson we will discuss global issues that affect schools and society. Under these topics are the 10 world issues, the 10 global issues according to Chloe Turner, and 17 sustainable development for 2015 to 2030. At the end of this chapter, you should be able to discuss at least 2 global issues in society and explain proposed solution to the social problems. Let's first discuss the importance of learning global issues. So why it is important to learn global issues? First, it encourages our awareness and critical thinking about these issues. Second is that students who learn about global issues are more than twice more likely to see the importance of personally taking social actions. And studying current events is empowering. Advantage of being aware is that in studying current events is we are being globally aware. We'll have our knowledge, competencies, values, and dispositions to act in an informed manner, demonstrate empathy, engage in effective intergroup communication, and build community across social, cultural, political, environment, geographic, and economic boundaries. Students can understand the perspective of other students and become accustomed to the environment around them. It helps reduce disturbing behavior in the classroom and maintain a conducive environment. What is global issues? Global issue is a broad description that is often used to explain integrate social concerns that affect human population locally and that are shared among diverse human societies. Now let's go down and discuss the 10 global issues. All these global issues or world issues have been introduced independently. It is important to understand that essentially they are all interrelated and do not exist independent of each other. First of all is the climate change. Global warming and climate change refer to an increase in average global temperatures. Natural events and human activities are believed to be contributing to an increase in average global temperatures, caused primarily in greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide. Climate change, rapid changes in global temperature in the 1900s was the warmest century during the last 1,000 years. Ecosystem impacts, massive extinction of a species, will aggravate the environmental crisis, rising sea levels. It will impact many coastlines and a large mass of humanity lives near the coast or by major rivers. Failing agricultural output, increase in world hunger. Next is communicable disease. A communicable disease such as a cold, a disease that spreads from person to person. Communicable diseases are diseases that you can catch from someone or something else. Some people may use the words contagious or infectious when talking about communicable disease. Communicable disease has 1 billion people lack access to healthcare system. In 2002, almost 11 million people died of infectious disease alone. 40 million living with HIV. There are 8.8 million new cases of tuberculosis and 1.75 million deaths from tuberculosis itself. Each year, malaria causes more than 300 million acute illnesses and at least 1 million deaths annually. More than 500,000 people, mostly children, died from measles in 2003. Third is the war and conflicts. There have been 14,531 wars resulting in 3 billion deaths over the years. Peace prevailed for a total of 292 years on Earth, about 5% of the time. At any given time, it's a sure bet that there are anywhere from 50 to 100 wars going on somewhere in the world. Most of them would be insurgencies or internal security problems in places often described as flashpoints, hotspots, or trouble spots. All synonymous language for same thing: political violence. Some estimates put at 137 the number of civil wars during the period from 1820 to 1990, and at 16.2 million deaths from civil wars fought after the World War II. Between 1990 and 1997, there were over 500 spells of guerrilla warfare around the world. But why do people go to war? First is that they believe that it is a way to be better for their life. To protect their way of life, people seek to acquire. Second is that the land and resources. People attacking want more resources to their way of life. Example, more water, more food, gold, oil. People defending their land want to protect their way of life, while the independence people attacking want to be free from the rule or oppression of others. People defending want to maintain control of their conquered resources. The fourth spot is that education. Education is one of the 10 world issues because the quality of life of a nation is easily judged by the number of literate population living in it. This is to say that education is a must if a nation aspires to achieve growth and development, and more importantly, to sustain it. This will explain the fact that rich and developed nations of the world have very high literacy rate and productive human resource. These countries whose literacy rates are low face the biggest problems in terms of poverty, disease, and corruption. Education, about 1 billion people. 1/6 of humanity are illiterate, unable to read a book or sign their names, much less fill out a simple application form or operate a computer. Today, 125 million children do not get any formal education at all. 150 million children that do receive an education but never make it to pass the financial instability due to the lack of infrastructure, education, and resources. Many countries are lacking the resources necessary to make or produce products to be sold in the world market. Financial instability causes of death, legacy of colonialism, overwhelming debt, mismanaged spending, governance, and corruption. Corruption is a problem that escapes no country. Rich or poor, small or large, but is more transparent in third world countries. Corruption is the act of abusing public office for private gain through taking advantage of one's citizens. Governance and corruption is financially stealing public funds, embezzlement, politically forced dictatorship, bolster, fraud, socially fear imprisonment and terrorism. Corruption also undermines economic development by generating considerable distortions and inefficiency. A number of corrupt governments have enriched themselves via foreign aid, which is often spent showy building. Next is the malnutrition and hunger. To be healthy and active, we must have food in adequate quantity, quality, and variety to meet our energy and nutrient requirements. Without adequate nutrition, children cannot develop their potential to the fullest, and adults will experience difficulty in maintaining or expanding theirs. Not everyone has adequate access to the food they need, and this has led to large-scale hunger and malnutrition in the world. Malnutrition and hunger every year reach 15 million children, and they die of hunger. The World Health Organization estimates that 1 of every third of the world is well-fed, and 1/3 is underfed. Another 1/3 is starving. Next world issues is the population, which is common here in the Philippines. We all go forth and multiply. That's the problem of the human population, and it has been successful for thousands and thousands of years. Expanding, exploring, migrating, conquering, utilizing, evolving, civilizing, industrializing, and now destroying the very land upon which we live. Population explosion, higher birth rate plus lower death rate is equals to population growth stress on the environment and ecosystem. Overcrowding at current rates of birth and death, the world's population is on a trajectory to double in 49 years. Growth of refugee and migrant populations are contributing to political instability and economic dislocation in many countries. Given the trends in population, energy and resource consumption combined with technological innovations and adverse human impact on the global ecosystem could triple or quadruple by the year 2050. Next is sanitation and water. More than 2.6 billion people, or 40% of the world's population, is lack of basic sanitation facilities, and over 1 billion people still use unsafe drinking water sources. As a result to this, thousands of children die every day from diarrhea and other water diseases. Sanitation and hygiene-related diseases and many more suffer and are weakened by illness. Sanitation and water without safe water and sustainable sanitation is a big problem. 1.1 billion people are forced to use unsafe drinking water sources. A total of 2.6 billion people live without improved sanitation. Less than half of people living in developing countries. Access to adequate water supply is not only a fundamental need and human right. Access to water supply also has considerable health and economic benefits to households and individuals. The promotion of fundamental behavior changes is key to integrating the appropriate use of services into daily routine. Next to this is the subsidies and trade barriers. Globalization, trade, and the free market are the talks of today. Many envision or talk about a future where people of different nationalities and culture will be able to share and trade resources across boundaries in a manner that will benefit all of humanity. But a lot of overbearing regulations can give too much power to a few and potentially corrupt the ruling regime and prevent innovative ideas from flourishing. Obstacle for a foreign nation to invest in a country due to those conditions and regulations which increase costs. Too much deregulation can lead to corporations being able to undermine basic social and human rights as well as lead to environmental damage, often without accountability. The poor get poorer and the rich get richer. And that's all for my topic. The remaining two topics, which are the 10 global issues by Chloe Turner and the 7 sustainable development for the year 2015 to 2030, will be discussed by my partner.
Hi everyone! Good day to all of you, especially to our beloved professor, Mrs. Carla Joy T. Palaris. My name is Maria Diadem I. Prado from BSED 2, and I am here to present to you the continuation of Ms. Padayo's report, which is all about the top 10 current global issues according to Chloe Turner and the 17 Sustainable Development Goals for the years 2015 to 2030. So, let's start. So first, let me define to you what is global issue. A global issue is a matter of public concern worldwide. The list of global issues presents problems or phenomena affecting people around the world, including but not limited to widespread social issues, economic issues, and environmental issues. Among all the good in the world and all the progress being made in global issues, there is still much more to be done. It is important to be aware of the most pressing global issues. So now, I present the top 10 current global issues. First is climate change. Global temperatures are rising and are estimated to increase from 2.6 degrees Celsius to 4.8 degrees Celsius by the next centuries. This would cause more severe weather, crisis with food and resources, and the spread of diseases. The reduction of greenhouse emissions and the spreading of education on the importance of going green can help make a big difference. Lobbying governments and discussing policies to reduce carbon emissions and encouraging reforestation is an effective way of making progress with climate change. Second is pollution. Pollution is one of the most difficult issues to combat, as the umbrella term refers to ocean litter, pesticides and fertilizers, air, light, and noise pollution. Clean water is essential for humans and animals, but more than 1 billion people don't have access to clean water due to pollution and from toxic substances, sewage, or industrial waste. Next is violence. Violence can be found in the social, cultural, and economic aspects of the world, whether it is conflict that has broken out in a city, hatred targeted at a certain group of people, or sexual harassment occurring on the streets. Violence is a preventable problem that has been an issue for longer than necessary. With continued work on the behalf of the government of all nations, as well as the individual citizens, the issue can be addressed and reduced. Here are various forms of violence. Physical violence occurs when someone uses a part of their body or an object to control a person's actions. Sexual violence occurs when a person is forced to unwillingly take part in sexual activity. Emotional violence occurs when someone says or do something make a person feel stupid or worthless. Psychological violence occurs when someone uses threats and causes fear in an individual to gain control. Spiritual or religious violence occurs when someone uses an individual's spiritual beliefs to manipulate, dominate, or control that person. Cultural violence occurs when an individual's harm as a result of practices that are part of her or his culture's religion, and tradition. Next is security and well-being. The United Nations is a perfect example of preventing the lack of security and well-being that is a serious global issue. Through its efforts, with regional organizations and representatives that are skilled in security, the UN is working toward increasing the well-being of people throughout the world. Next is lack of education. More than 72 million children throughout the globe that are of the age to be in primary education are not enrolled in school. This can be attributed to inequality and marginalization as well as poverty. Fortunately, there are many organizations that work directly with the issue of education in providing the proper tools and resources to aid schools. Next is unemployment. Without the necessary education and skills for employment, many people, particularly 15 to 24 years old, struggle to find jobs and create a proper living for themselves and their families. This leads to a lack of necessary resources such as enough food, clothing, transportation, and other proper living conditions. Fortunately, there are organizations throughout the world teaching people in need the skills for jobs and interviewing, helping to lift people from the vicious cycle of poverty. Next is government corruption. Corruption is a major cause of poverty considering how it affects the poor the most, eroding political and economic development, democracy, and more. Corruption can be detrimental to the safety and well-being of the citizens living within the corrupted vicinity and can cause an increase in violence and physical threats without as much regulation in the government. Next is malnourishment and hunger. Currently, there are 795 million people who do not have enough to eat. Long-term success to ending the world hunger starts with ending poverty. With fighting poverty through proper training for employment, education, and the teaching of cooking and gardening skills, people who are suffering will be more likely to get jobs, earn enough money to buy food, and even learn how to make their own food to save money. Next is substance abuse. The United Nations reports that by the beginning of the 21st century, an estimated 185 million people over the age of 15 were consuming drugs globally. The drugs most commonly used are marijuana, cocaine, alcohol, amphetamine stimulants, opiates, and volatile solvents. Different classes of people, both poor and rich, partake in substance abuse, and it is a persistent issue throughout the world. Petitions and projects are in progress to end the global issue and substance abuse. And last but not the least is terrorism. Terrorism is an issue throughout the world that causes fear and insecurity, violence, and death. Across the globe, terrorists attack innocent people, often without a warning. This makes civilians feel defenseless in their everyday lives. Making national security a higher priority is key in combating terrorism, as well as promoting justice in wrongdoings to illustrate the enforcement of the law and the serious punishment for terror crimes. Our next topic is the 17 Sustainable Development Goals for the period 2015 to 2030. First is end poverty in all its forms everywhere. Next, end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. Next, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all, promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all, build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation, reduce inequality within and among countries, make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impact in line with the United Nations Framework's Convention on Climate Change, conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development, protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation, and have biodiversity loss, promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. And last, strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. That's all for our report. We hope that you gained some understanding and key points on the issues or problems that our world faces every single day.